Now, I want to return to Huawei, the Chinese technology firm that has been granted a limited role in the UK's ultra-fast 5G mobile phone network. So what does that mean, and why is there so much concern over this? We're joined by Stacie Hoffman, a cybersecurity expert at Oxford Information Lab. A lot of concern. We're hearing what the United States are saying. They're adamant that this shouldn't happen. What are your thoughts, initial thoughts about this decision by the UK government?
Well, I think they're taking a very practical and measured approach. We are different from the US in many ways, and one in this situation is that the US doesn't have Huawei in their national networks. We already do. We're already having Huawei test beds that have been in for a couple of years now. So we need to acknowledge that we are in a different environment than America is.
But just because we've already got Huawei within those networks, and because it will cost an awful lot to remove them, remove those particular posts and poles and whatever, masts, does that mean that we should still encourage more of it?
I don't think that the policy released today is actually encouraging more. I think over time we'll see a decrease in Huawei's percentage of network share. And that's because if you look at it, they're not allowed in core. They're also not allowed in sensitive areas. So we're already relegating them to a very small part of the network. And then of that part, they will have only 35% maximum.
But given the way that 5G works, given the way the Internet of Things, the direction of travel that we're going in, is it enough to say that, okay, they won't be in the core, therefore they cannot access data, they can't access military bases, secure, sensitive sites? Is that realistically, if they want to, surely they can?
Surely they can, but they don't need to be part of the network to do those things. Just a couple of years ago, there was a study that showed that China was able to reroute traffic in the US, where they don't have equipment, to go through China so that they could scoop up data. So there's much bigger issues that we need to consider when we're thinking about those problems of data collection and surveillance and spying. That's not something that is only available through being part of our network.
So why the concern then? Why is there so much outrage, especially from the United States? And bearing in mind that Australia and the United States don't have Huawei in their network.
That's true. And that's a really good question. So it's, for the US, a big part is cyber espionage or IP theft. Here, we've been very vocal. The National Cybersecurity Center, the Huawei Cybersecurity Evaluation Center, they've been very vocal about the poor security processes that Huawei as a company has, and as well as the poor software engineering. So we know that there's they're not the best equipment out there, and we're trying to mitigate those risks as well as the legal risks of Huawei being a Chinese company and therefore subject to Chinese law.
Now, when we had a couple of years ago, there was the French, the Le Monde Afrique realised that there was a scoop with that newspaper that in Addis Ababa, the African Union building that was very much involved with Huawei, IT company there, dominating that building. There were data dumps from Ethiopia to China. Huawei not implicated. It was never proved that they were implicated, but it just adds to that suspicion. How do you counteract then that? How do you genuinely say to everybody it's going to be fine?
Well, I think that the UK is really trying to put in a lot of safeguards, a lot of good practices to help avoid something like that. So one being diversification of the network, ensuring that you have more than one supplier. Huawei was the main supplier to the Addis Ababa, the building, and the network itself was actually supplied and funded by China, and they were the one operating and maintaining that network. So they were much more involved in the network than they would be here. So I think that's something that's important to differentiate.
Fascinating to speak to you. We'll see how it all pans out. Stacie Hoffman from Oxford Information Lab, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thanks for having me.